Today I'm here with Max Igra, aka the artist known as Maxi. He's a very talented, very laid-back Canadian expat bringing soulful slacker tunes to the Melbourne scene. So, Maxi, to explain what Maxi is to us, I want you to imagine the word Maxi as an acrostic poem and fill out each letter for us.
Many aspirations X-rayed internally.
Beautiful. Couldn't have said it myself. You are clearly a poet.
I appreciate the opportunity to express my poetic stance on our troubled world.
And I appreciate the opportunity to appreciate it.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. So as I said before, you're originally from Toronto in Canada, yes?
Yes, I am. I moved to Melbourne almost 3 years ago next month.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on 3 years next month. Hope it's been fun.
Yeah, thank you.
No
Yeah.
worries. All right. Now, for somebody like me, the only things I know about Toronto are Scott Pilgrim and Always. So in order for me to better understand where you're coming from in terms of your background and your influence, I want to know how the Toronto scene compares to the Melbourne scene and what you bring to the Melbourne scene from the Toronto scene.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so basically I started off, I guess, the musical career in Toronto, where in Toronto it's similar to a degree as in Melbourne, where pretty much every household you go to, someone has a guitar.
Hell yeah.
There's always someone that has a guitar. The big difference is that there's so many people that have guitars there that have no idea what the hell they're doing. Whereas 9 out of 10 times that you'll find someone with a guitar or some sort of musical instrument in their house in Melbourne, they definitely know what the hell they're doing, and they're playing gigs. So the thing though as well is that before I came to Melbourne, I spent 5 years in Nova Scotia and Halifax. In that town, it was a lot more of like the indie scene, which is very similar to the Melbourne scene, but it's that classic like Home Shake, Mac DeMarco, a little bit always like early stuff and that kind of vibe. And that was more of like the smaller community where everyone kind of knew each other. Now I find that everyone kind of knows each other in that scene in Halifax because it's such a small town. Whereas I find in Melbourne, there is similar scenes as it is, but it's very cliquey. Like you have the punk scene, which is like huge in the punk scene, and then you have the indie scene, which is huge in the indie scene, and everyone kind of knows each other. But there's so many different things, and it's such a huge scale, as well as that the quality of music as well is like next level compared to anywhere I've been in my life. As well as that, I find that it's interesting from the Toronto scene as well as the Melbourne scene is that I find that every time I go on public transit, I always see someone holding a musical instrument, which is sick. And there's so much live music and everything's always really good and more originals as opposed to just like random cover bands here and there. But as opposed to in Toronto, when you see someone on the subway holding a guitar, you're like, damn, that dude gets it, or girl gets it. So where literally my best friend from back home found his roommate because he just walked up to him on a subway being like, dude, you have a guitar, sick, like what's that, what type of guitar you play? And then that was it. So yeah, it's very more it's way more beautiful of a scene, way more enhanced in Melbourne, 100%.
Okay, good to hear, man. All right. Now, you've made music with some great up-and-coming collaborators. Shout out to Michael Moyne from Tram Cops. And after ISO, what artists are you most keen to collaborate with?
Hopefully I'll be able to do something with Tram Cops. Again, with Sun Can See, potentially like Pup Tentacle, Pseudo Mind Hive. And usually I'm very grateful for the members in my band. So Imogen Siegler, who's really, really good and really big, plays in a bunch of different things. She play keys. My drummer is the same drummer from Hannah Kate, as well as Pseudo Mind Hive.
Okay.
So yeah, so we got a big old powerhouse of a lineup. So and everyone knows each other. You always want to help out everyone else. And it's. Yeah, so that's usually the way I kind of do it. I look at being like, who are the friends that I want to play with, and I am very grateful that I have the luxury of the friends that I want to play with all make fantastic music. So,
one word people often use when describing Maxi's musical style is slacker. And considering the state of productivity in COVID, how do you feel about labels like slacker now?
It's more descriptive of the feeling that you get from the genre and the feeling that you get from the music, as opposed
Mm.
to an emphasis on you as a human being. I come from my musical style always comes from a background of like, I guess like Pink Floyd and psychedelic rock, where I
Mm.
much would prefer having people just sit in the audience and just stare mindlessly and like just jazz out and slack
Mm.
on and just dance a bit, as opposed to a huge mosh pit in the middle. So
Mm.
that's usually my what I love.
Now, you recently performed on stream for Slam, which is student life at Mel Poly and not some kind of wrestling show. And as someone, and as someone who is starting to come up in the live scene before ISO, how do you find performing on stream compares to performing on stage?
So it's
Mm.
hard when you're trying to captivate an audience where you don't actually see. You'll get
Mm.
like some of the comments being like, "Go Maxi" and things like that. But I'm just
Mm.
like, all I kind of want is like that feeling that you kind of vibe with the crowd. Like I feel like I'm definitely almost a bit more nervous sometimes doing a live stream
Mm.
as opposed to a gig at points. But I've
Mm.
also, but it's hard to say because I've also played gigs so many times that
Mm.
advice for those starting up,
Mm.
just go for it. A gig's a gig, you know.
Hell
You
yeah.
gotta get your music out there. You gotta do what you love for other people, and
Mm.
you gotta have other people. You know, it's to some degree, it's a bit of a selfish game in itself for music, where it's like you
Mm.
want people to it's in art in itself being like I want to show you my work, you know what I
Mm.
mean? But it's also at the same time, it's like people want to enjoy it, you know,
Mm.
and you gotta give that and access that platform to have that like give and take, I guess, you know.
Mm.
And yeah, the love of music ain't going nowhere. So it's go for it as much as you can.
And speaking of recording music, not so long ago, you filmed a performance of your new single, the awesome single Chatterbox, in your backyard.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, now with the lockdowns going on, how are you making a space for your own creativity and work while kind of being forced to stay at home?
I'm grateful as well as thankful to be able to have some to access to musical equipment,
Mm.
and as well as people around me who have a platform to use to promote music and things like that. So the big thing with ISO though is that sometimes you need inspiration to write. For most musicians as well, is that we write based off of personal experience, you know.
Mm.
And unfortunately, well, for me, the sadder things are, the better I write. And
Mm.
yeah, as opposed to irritated, which, if that kind of makes sense, you know what I mean. You're irritated
Mm.
being stuck indoors is different than being like sad from something going wrong, or like doing things, taking a risk and failing, you know. Because
Mm.
that's I find that that's the best way to write, unfortunately, you know. And it's
Mm.
weird when you're trying to, yeah, and especially I'll try to get into that mind state of like when things were going like super south to trying to do it, but then I'm like
Mm.
walking away being like, why did I do that, you know?
Yeah. All right. And finally, of all of your tracks that you've put out, I would have to say that my own personal favorite was a very cute cover of a Lumineers song that you did with your very talented mum. Um, are your
Yeah.
are your family back in Canada?
Yes, yeah, they're back in Canada. Yeah, they're just kicking it through ISO and everything like that. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. So, assuming they see this, with kind of the borders up and travel being restricted, what would you like to say to them?
To say to them,
Mm.
"Hey ma, I love you."
Oh,
Um and yeah, still working away, trying to do the best, staying positive, working on different platforms. My man Alex over here, we're trying to get by in these times, you know.
mhm.
It's tough times, you know, but the community is still alive, and the community is thriving, and we're just adapting to whatever life throws at us, and that's how we always work.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. All right. Well, Maxi, thank you so much for coming on today and giving us this awesome interview.
Oh, anytime, always happy to be a
Beautiful.
part of this.